Hi, everybody. It's noon on the dot, and we're going to give maybe a minute or two just to see if there's some new people still trying to figure out how to get on. I think you can all see the 4 people in our displays. Everybody knows Josh, and I'll introduce Adam and Neil in a few minutes to the rest of the team. But it's great to see everybody. We're still in Ocala. Georgia finally did the stay-at-home rule, but we determined that we were essential business because our internet is better here. so we came from the farm to Ocala, but we didn't see anybody or touch anything or anything like that. So we're obeying the rules, but all's good. Hopefully everybody's well out there.
It's amazing the difference of traffic. Now it's cut in half since last week when we were here, for sure.
So a lot of
the trucks, the Walmart. If you guys have been to the farm, the Walmart distribution centers down the road, those trucks are still hauling tail through here, I'll tell you, which is, thank goodness, we have no food.
Especially no toilet paper, right?
Still hard to find.
Yep. Ricky went to Walmart yesterday morning and no toilet paper.
No.
All right, we can give it one more minute and then we'll get started.
All right.
I don't know if there's anybody up in New York on the call, but I'd be curious. I hope the weather's getting a little bit better up there. From what I see on the news, it looks like it's been raining a lot. And we're just let you know we're all praying for y'all, for sure.
All right. Looks like we're having some questions and comments coming in.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, Josh, why don't you get us started?
Yeah. Okay, guys. Good to see you, everybody, again. I know we're still, the attendees are still ticking up, but we'll get started as we like to adhere to our time. So welcome back, everybody. I feel like a podcast announcer. I'm like Joe Rogan today. All right. So good to see you guys again. We got a great show for you. So a couple housekeeping things while we're all getting on board. Again, if you were on last week, this is a forum led by Dill and Susan. It's just kind of a positive message, very short, to start your week out on a good note. Also so that we can network and share together any questions, comments, concerns. We got a lot of ideas for growing this group. We heard a lot of great feedback last week, so thank you guys. One of the things that we heard and that we'll start as of next week is a video call instead of just this webinar format. So stay tuned for information on that so that we can see everybody on video should you be up for showing your face. The other thing that we'll have by next week is a Facebook page connecting everybody together, a Facebook group, I should say. So I know there's a lot of comments about people joining in together, chatting and catching up with people. So that will be happening as of next week. If you guys have any comments, please send to myself, Dill, or hello@resource department so we can make those changes. Again, thank you guys who submitted last week. And if you know anybody else that would like some positive feedback or some vibes to start the week, please do share the link, pass it along. We're open to everybody here. So with that said, let's get going. We've got 2 guests today, Adam and Neil, which Susan and Dill will introduce. We'll do the interviews and then we'll come back. I will say that what worked really well last week is that if you have questions, please submit in the chat area. So we'll be taking those throughout the call. And please think about over the next few minutes, if you're happy about anything and want to share, if you have a dedication that you want to share today. So we will recap at the end by reading some of those and calling on you to just share your story, your thoughts. So please add those to the chats and we'll get started. So Dill and Susan.
Hi, gang. Great to see you. And welcome to the Intrepid Spirits Huddle. The sea is dangerous and the storms are terrible, but these have never been sufficient reasons to remain ashore. Unlike timid souls, intrepid spirits seek victory over those things that seem impossible. It is with an iron will that they go on the most daring of all adventures to seek the shadowy future and conquer the unknown. That is what we all are, intrepid spirits, and we must be there as we go through this huge period of change. Susan's going to introduce Neil first, and Adam. But I just want to give you one quick thought starter to think about as we percolate. And this is by John Wooden. And he says, things turn out for the best for those people who make the best of the way things turn out. Think about that for a while as you go through your day, but it's a great one. And Sunshine,
okay.
take it away.
Okay, so everybody, remember our huddle format? Everybody's present and ready, and I hope smiling. And our mission last week was to share positive human energy. Well, our mission should continue to share positive human energy this week as well. I know that a lot of people need it. I listened to a thing this week of a surgeon in the Navy, and he was talking about fear and how we do some crazy things when we're fearful, like go and buy a lot of toilet paper. But you know, somehow that makes us feel like we have control and over the chaos and stuff. But he said, what I'd like to do is to challenge you to be intentional about those fears and how you manage those fears. And so if you take the coronavirus, we know from the research that a lot of the people that are the most at risk to have serious consequences are the elderly, and the elderly that have underlying conditions, or younger people that have underlying conditions. So fortunately, unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about being elderly or older, but there are some things we can do about these underlying conditions, because about a third of the deaths every year, I read, are from things that we can control, like our diet, our activity, our lifestyle. So, and it was interesting, I just got a statistic that showed for 80-plus-year-olds, 79% of the people have some kind of underlying condition. And so that's about 2 million people that are really at risk. For 70 to 79-year-olds, about 75% of the people have underlying conditions. And so that's about 2.5 million people that are at risk. The good news is, for a lot of the people in this group, if you're 18 to 29, only 7% have underlying conditions. It's less than about 300,000 people in the US. 30 to 39-year-olds, only about 14% have underlying conditions, so it's about 500,000 people. So the good news is, if we start early, we can manage those underlying conditions, and we can then lessen our chance of risk and decrease our fear. So instead of going and getting the bag of Cheetos, maybe we try to spend this time being intentional and thinking about how we eat more healthy, or how we go walk the dog again and get more exercise. So if we lower our risk, then we should be able to have less fear. So just an interesting thing that I saw this week about what should our mission be. So let's be intentional this week about how do we live healthier lifestyles. And then that way we can be better around the people we're around. So our first guest is definitely, he and his wife are definitely a couple of positive human energy. And to show how our vortex, you know, we've always talked about our vortex. And so we met a gentleman in Team 1430 at University of Georgia a while back. He got married. His wife's best friend is Michelle. Michelle worked at the University of Georgia, still does, but when we met her, she was working in the athletic department, working on her PhD. And so through Michelle, we got to meet Neil. And they're just really two wonderfully positive people in our world, and we just really enjoy being around them. Neil is actually the assistant head coach of Georgia's swim team. He swam at Georgia. He actually won the NCAA title in the 200-yard breaststroke in 2009. He represented South Africa in the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, where he was a semi-finalist in the 200-meter breaststroke, and he came in fourth at the 2010 World Championships in the breaststroke. So he's been the last few weeks working with quite a number of athletes that are already Olympians, were getting ready for their next Olympics, some that were getting ready for their first Olympics, and some that were getting ready for just to be able to be in the Olympic trials. And, you know, if they had a really, really great day, maybe they'd make the Olympic team, but their goal is the Olympic trials and be able to do that. So I wanted Neil to share with us just some of the emotions and how they were dealing with those as they've gone through the last few weeks. Neil?
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Hey guys. Yep. So firstly, I'd like to thank Dill and Susan for the invitation to join you all today. What a fantastic platform for us like-minded people to share some ideas and experiences and positivity. I appreciate this opportunity to just share a small part of my story during this period of uncertainty. As I'm sure is the case for most of us right now, it's been an absolute roller coaster these last few weeks. We were in full swing here in Athens, Georgia, prepping for the NCAA championships, which were scheduled for 18th of March. And the week prior to that, the NCAA announced that it would be run without any spectators except parents. And then a couple hours later, no spectators at all. A couple hours later, teams and conferences were pulling out. And then by the end of the day, the meet was canceled. Obviously a day of shock for everyone involved, but especially for our senior class whose careers just came to an abrupt end. Fortunately, after acknowledging the disappointment of that, we were able to pivot our focus to the Olympic trials in June. So conversations turned to extending that training schedule, that training cycle for a few more months to those Olympic trials. And for our postgraduate group and our pro group, that was always the focus. They don't have the NCAA season. So their focus was always trials and the Tokyo Olympic Games. But there were obviously many tough conversations discussing ways to reframe just everything that was going on around us. It was tough to see just everyone's thought processes trying to come to grips with all of it, but just to remain positive and for one kind of reframe it to realize that to be fit and healthy at this point is one major blessing. So to look on the bright side of that, it was definitely a challenging time as the news broke. We had to find pool access, which was a challenge, to try to keep training. Everything was closing around us, but fortunately we had a private pool down near Atlanta that we were able to use. And our pro group really didn't miss a beat. They were fired up and swimming out of their minds. They had a great 10-day period of some hard work. I think the realization for them set in that they were part of the fortunate minority that actually had a pool to train in, whereas people around the country and globally at that point had no pools. So they did a great job of making the best of it. They definitely, as a whole, did a great job of controlling the controllables with everything that was going on around them. But yeah, over this period, there was a lot of speculation whether the games were going to happen as planned, obviously with like the Masters golf and other big sporting events being cancelled or postponed. There was a lot of speculation. But once the IOC actually made the decision to postpone to 2021, besides the initial disappointment, I think it was actually a big sigh of relief. A lot of weight lifted off a lot of their shoulders, just because I think the uncertainty of an unknown goal was their biggest challenge that they were struggling with. But as professional athletes, they definitely are wired to regroup and refocus on that next step. So for them, for the majority of them, that next step is still going to be the Olympic trials, but now it's going to be in June of 2021. So they have to wait the full year. And obviously training goes ahead as usual. As soon as we can get back into pools, right now they're trying to do as much as they can on dry land, in the weight room, whatever they can get their hands on to stay in shape. But definitely the vast majority of them will be swimming those trials. A lot of them have to make some changes to their schedule and to defer graduate studies. We had one young gentleman who got accepted to Oxford and MIT to study math in the fall. So he's going to be deferring for a year. And then another guy was supposed to do his master's in engineering at Georgia Tech. So he's deferring. But then for others, the next step for them was moving into the next season of their life. We had one young gentleman who graduated this year, who's getting married in August, and then another young lady who was going to law school in August. So once that news broke, it's actually a pretty neat story. So we are there in that pool in Atlanta, and the news broke, and obviously she was very disappointed, but she requested one final race. So we had her step up the next day and race, and all suited up, all the kids watching and cheering. So it was a pretty neat moment for her to, under the circumstances, a great end to a great career for her, which was pretty special.
Great stuff.
It was a moving morning for sure. Yeah. But talking to the athletes, really just at this point reminding them that some weren't able to showcase their final competition, but at the end of the day, it really is all about the journey. It's not the final show. So for them just to remember the great times and the journey, for some of them that's gone almost 2 decades of swimming in their lives, but just to remember the positives for sure. And what they've learned through this experience will greatly benefit them in their future endeavors, regardless of what life throws at them. As a coach, I feel incredibly blessed to be a part of their journeys, and obviously very excited for Tokyo 2021.
Awesome.
Great. Awesome. Well, Neil, I think we have a 10-year-old in Sarasota, Florida, who's got some South African blood in him as well, and he's our godson, Dre Hersom. And
Awesome.
Yeah, and he got to swim in the Florida's state. I'm sure I'm messing it up, but he was one of the top 10-year-olds in the state this year. So we're going to be recruiting him for Georgia down the line. So, Dre, we love you, and here's your future coach. So think of your questions. I'm sure you have some for Neil. When we come back, we're going to hop to Adam right now. And I bet a lot of you know our friend Adam. Adam was an igniter for what, 8, 9, 10 years?
11
and a half. Oh my gosh. So 11 and a half years, and went on some of those crazy journeys. Russia was one, and then traveling across Canada when it was below zero for days on end. And now we all know he's got a 8-week-old baby and a 4-year-old little girl. And they're one of the igniter couples. We had quite a few igniters end up getting married through the years. So Jamie and Adam were one of those. So he's currently with the Joe Louis Company, and they've pivoted some of their fabrication for events into helping with what we're battling with today. So Adam, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, thanks, Susan. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. So I have been with JLC for 3.5 years, and just a little bit about us real quick. We are a full-service event production company based in Southern California, with presence in Nashville, New York City, as well as the Middle East and North Africa. We have full design and fabrication capabilities. We work in all substrates. We have a massive graphic shop, as well as a really robust inventory of event production assets. We primarily deal in concert and festival production, red carpets and premieres for all of the major film studios and streaming services. The NFL is a massive client of ours, as well as some of the teams. So as you all have felt, our world, the live sport and entertainment world, has been absolutely decimated by what's going on. And we had to take a step back and figured, imagine all the assets and the gear that has been shelved and warehoused and parked across the country and literally around the world due to the full stop of sports, TV and film production, concerts, festivals, etc. So if you think about that at a macro level, the tents and temporary structures, truss, ballast, and staging, production trailers, catering infrastructure, generators and power distribution, temporary fencing, barricades, and then the massive pool of highly skilled labor that's carpenters and fabricators, the riggers that build all of the stages, the electricians, IT distribution, heavy equipment operators, CDL drivers, catering, everything that's the trickle down. Everybody has come to a full stop, and we're all kind of figuring, how can we work together? So we started a company 2 weeks ago called EIR, which is Entertainment Industry Response. And this is in collaboration with not only a network of our vendors, but also with some of our direct competitors. We all just kind of huddled and said, let's do this together. So we kind of figured, let's jump in, and with our experience of producing some of the largest events in the world, who do we need to start talking to? So our company based in Southern California, we immediately reached out to the mayor's office. We have deep connections at LAPD, LAFD, the local FEMA office. And then we started talking to the state governments. We've been in contact with over a dozen governor's offices, just telling them about how we can help. So call us. And then last week, we started connecting with some of the hospital networks and the healthcare supply chains and the group purchasing organizations. So right now, our offerings are we can establish drive-through testing facilities. We can outfit existing facilities, convention centers, sports complexes, and stuff like that with any of the infrastructure that they may need, all per the guidelines of the Army Corps of Engineers. One of our partners owns and operates temporary ice skating rinks that they install at strip malls and at country clubs during the holiday season that unfortunately we can now retrofit to become temporary morgues, as well as temporary structures. We can build any size tent with a subfloor, HVAC, power, internet, lighting, whatever they need rather quickly. And then some of the disciplines that we bring to the table is site management, custom fabrication I mentioned, engineered temporary structures, all the shipping, trucking, and logistics, the fleets of trucks and drivers that we have available, the power distribution, food and bev. So if we need to come in and help with crew meals and catering, whatever that may be, temporary restrooms, waste management, queue line management, just everything that comes with an event, if we can pivot that and help the governments, local, state, federal, if they ever ask for it, as well as any of the hospital networks. So that's kind of what we have going on. If anybody wants to check us out, we're at www.eir.team.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing, Adam. Remember, we always pivot, right? What do we got to do? And pivot to help. Okay, so now let's open it up for any questions for Neil or for Adam. And Josh, you can take over from here.
You got it, buddy.
Yeah, all right, guys. So looking at the chat, if you guys have any questions for Neil and Adam, please put it on there. I know, first off, we had Mikey with a few questions here. Mikey, if we can unmute you, come on board. Open to your questions. Mikey Hersom.
Hey, buddy.
Hey,
Good to see you.
Hey, there it goes.
Hello, everybody. My man Adam, how's it, buddy? Here,
Good.
let's get. There we go. There's Andre. Neil, there's Andre, your buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Georgia 2028, he'll be there.
Yeah. Awesome. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Listen, well, first thing is that I've been doing these huddles with Dale for 50 years almost, and now it's good to see Andre in a family huddle, so it's cool. Very blessed, all of us. Adam, two questions. Well, one for you and one for Neil. How can people that aren't in any of the companies that have joined your larger group, how can people get involved in that? And then Neil, question for you is, you watch movies and things like that about Michael Phelps, the greatest that ever was, and how everything in his day was so finely tuned. Everything, what he ate, when he woke up, when he practiced, How do world-class athletes reset their entire lives to put everything on hold in order to be ready to go a year from now in Tokyo, when they were planning every single second, every single day to get to Tokyo this year? How does that all work? So maybe Adam, you can start, and then Neil, you can go next.
Sure, great question, Mikey. We have a link on the website. At the top, it says, I need help or I can help. And then if you click on I can help, you can either click on as an individual or as a company and list the potential services that you can provide. If you're an individual and you want to come out and help us build, if you want to help us in the catering department, whatever it is, once we get on site and we establish a job site, we're just going to go through the roster. And if it's if we start building out in the Tampa or Sarasota area, Mikey, and you wanted to jump in, or if we're in Atlanta, then you can see where we're going to start building and start activating, and then people can come in and help out. So great question, though. Thanks for asking.
Great.
Yeah, Mikey, just reframing, I think comes down to the mental side of things more than anything, because as professional athletes in swimming specifically, they really are just fine-tuning those details, the fitness level, the base that's established over many years of swimming is still going to be there. So really they have to see it as another year opportunity to fine tune details and get faster and faster leading up to now 2021 Olympic Games. I think the biggest impact is for some young teenagers who now get an additional year to try and make that Olympic team, because there are guys that, in my opinion, had the potential but were too young by a year or two, and now fortunately have that shot to try come top 2 at Olympic trials. So we could see a few more upsets on that side of things. But I think the preparation remains the same. They've been putting so much work in for so many years. They just have to see it as an opportunity to fine tune those details and make themselves better a year from now. Yeah. Thanks for that, Mikey.
Quite a challenge.
Yeah, great. Thank you, guys, for those. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. I had one here. Looks like John Stewart had earlier asked a question about the Olympic torch relay. We're very close to that. As you guys might know, we are working with Coca-Cola on the torch relay. I can give you a quick update there. The torch, the Olympic flame, will be lit and continue to be lit for the next year, which is very exciting. I know a lot of people who keep track of the Olympics know that that's a huge symbolic symbol for the whole game. So that will continue to burn. And there are many ideas on what to do with that for the next year, whether traveling around Japan or around the world. So the torch relay, although will be delayed until next year, will continue to, the flame will continue to burn. So we'll keep you posted on what we hear about that as we move forward. And John, I'd like to thank you for that question. Also would like to invite you on as we move into our happy moment and dedication sharing. So I think we've got Jennifer Jordan and John Stewart. John, we'll start with you. If we can unmute you here, if you'd like to share any thoughts, inspiration for us, dedications for the day would be great.
Well, good morning. Can you hear me? Everything good?
Yeah. Hey, John.
Hey, guys. So good to hear so many of you. And hello, Jennifer, even though I can't see, and Mikey and everybody. Yeah, just a little bit of my happy message today is kind of just, it amazes me how the DNA of Ignition continues just to go around the world and around the globe, and the people on this call, you know, and the seeds that you plant years and years ago. This past weekend, Jill and Susan, and many of you probably know that, you know, for the past 10 years or so, I've been working with the Scouts, and, you know, about an 8-year project was putting together our World Scout Jamboree, which was in 2019, and there were 50,000 people that came together, 45,000 people that all came together, and for 10 days, and it was a long planning process, but kind of, it harkens back to the days of you guys pulling off Live Earth and Live 8. 3 weeks ago, the World Scouts, because of having scouts in Italy and just all around in Korea and Malaysia and going on shutdown, they realized that they needed to convene just a special jamboree, but a virtual one over the internet. And so this past weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, scouts convened around the world, and looking at the numbers this morning, over 5 million scouts participated, which blew me away that, you know, so much larger than an actual jamboree. We had over 5 million scouts convene. First time they had workshops on health and wellness and just the mental, where you are mentally during this COVID crisis. And as scouts kind of turned from kind of playing games, and there were DJ parties from, you know, Kenya and South America and all over. But not only did they have conversations about how are you and how to survive, and you know, this challenge is not in the outdoors, and this challenge is not climbing a mountain, but it is a challenge, and so there's a lot of coaching around that. But as scouts, then it also turned to what can we do in our communities, and it's been really cool to see some of the things that are happening in places like Portugal and different places in Africa, and even here in the you know, saw Scouts Canada post this morning about some young man who's using his 3D printer to create, you know, these bands that hold masks behind the nurses' heads because they're having problems just with it always on their ears, and that's my good word today. It's just, you know, the spirit of Ignition and that whole thing about just saying, you know, we've got to do something, and everybody says, oh, you can't pull that off in that short period of time, and lo and behold, it was the largest world scouting event of all time, and it took place in about 3 weeks' time. So that's my good word, and I appreciate all you guys.
Yeah, and John signed up as John Teletubby Stewart. Just letting you all know.
Hey, that's Dill's name for me. I gotta stick to it.
All right, thank you, John, Appreciate
Thanks,
those
guys.
words. And we're running out of time, but I do want to add Jennifer on here. Jennifer, if you got a quick thought, dedication, happy moment before we head into the hip hip. Just see, sometimes we have some issues with, we might have some mic issues. Jennifer, are you on? Nope, no problem. We'll save Jennifer for next week then. All right, guys. Well, we are out of time, and we do want to respect your schedules. I know everybody's off and running to different things. So thank you guys this week. Thanks to our guests, Adam and Neil, so much. You guys are doing great work. Appreciate it. We will be back next week. We've got a couple more amazing guests. Dill, I know I'll let you speak here for the Hip Hip Parade, but we'll send out some more information on this huddle, how to watch it again, how to get more information about next week. Dill?
Perfect. All right, so real quick, downrange will be the topic next week. We're all living it. Downrange, few people, that means you're on the front. And Coleman Ruiz will be the speaker on that. It's amazing. And I would just toss real quick, walk with the dreamers, the believers, the courageous, the cheerful, the planners, the doers, the successful people with the heads in the clouds and their feet firmly on the ground. Let their spirit ignite a fire within you to leave this world better than you found it. And one last other thought starter for you is from Eleanor Roosevelt. You must do what you think you cannot do. And it's time to change. We can do this. Hip, hip!
Hooray!
Hooray!
Hip, hip!
Hooray!